It is the 29th of November, 2023, just 2 days to get into December. And indeed, it is a monumental day because the Finance Act 2023 has taken a different shape after the court's ruling yesterday. The much-awaited ruling essentially went down, and there are a lot of talking points that we're going to get into that this morning. Looking forward to that. But here's just the point of what it is that you should know this morning. Indeed, that a housing levy has at least up until 10th of January 2024 been stopped. The implementation of SHIV, that is a new health scheme that the president essentially said was going to be the magic bullet in unlocking the healthcare sector or healthcare provision in the country, has been stopped. Also, the privatization of Mombasa-Lamu ports also stopped. Jubilation indeed for Mombasa residents as they claim that move to try and privatize a particular port was just efforts for somebody to take away what they believed was their share of the national cake. We talk about that this morning in just a variety of ways. Also, this morning we look at that declaration by Raila Amolo Odinga. What has he said? Has he said we are close to going back to the streets again? We talk about that this morning as well, because indeed yesterday they weigh in on the new NATCO report and continue to castigate the president and the Kenya Kwanza government for not implementing the cut on tax in the country that he says has continued to push majority of Kenyans to the brink of starvation in the country. Which way then we talk about this morning, plus other news that we're going to look at this morning, also top of that privatization bill, KICC, that the Kenyatta International Convention Center put on sale, but who indeed owns the title deed of KICC? Also looking at how Kenya Power has been performing, the high cost of their tariffs, also pushing them close to the red. A lot of talking points this morning. We're going to look at exactly how the country has also responded to the floods, crisis in the country occasioned by the El Nino rains. Also talking about how the floods emergency center that has now been established by the government is going to look like. Much more to look into. For now, we take a tiny breather. Once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to your newspapers this morning. I am at Kiage Simba on X. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. This is The Morning Drift, but more certainly, Lookuptv. Once we come back, your dailies. This is the Daily Nation this morning, and as expected, the highlights of majority of your dailies this morning are going to focus on the High Court's ruling yesterday. And indeed, there are three key areas that the court ruled on yesterday. The courts have this week dealt President William RUTO heavy blows by appending three key pillars of his Kenya Kwanza administration: housing, health, privatization. Judges yesterday declared the housing levy unconstitutional, but gave the state until January 10th to appeal the decision. On Monday, the High Court suspended three new health laws, as well as the planned sale of the Mombasa and the Lamu ports. That's what we're going to talk about this morning, by the way. But here, it's covered on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. There's a story here on page 6 that also is the center stage of a conversation this morning. Raila hints at a return of protests. Azimio leader Raila has rallied his supporters to be ready for street demos, even as opposition coalition brings forward its parliamentary group meeting today. You know, that's essentially him speaking in Kisii yesterday as he goes around the country on his voter uploading drive, onto the ODM party. Now, read that story on page 6. There's also a story here on how 120 have been killed already, as 89,000 have also been displaced by floods. That's essentially on Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Tana River being the worst hit. Read that story on page 12. Also, members of parliament are accusing now Inshwara of giving teachers road deal, and lawmakers threatened to cancel the 53 billion shillings plan on the back pages of the Daily Nation. And there's a story here on how KNTC bosses face detectives over edible oil scandal. They're going to read that story on page 8 of the Daily Nation. On the back pages, we're going to read about how Champions League is back. It's do or die for bottom-placed Red Devils as they play Galatasaray in Group A tonight. And Gunners welcome loans. I mean, it's better to say Manchester United are going to crash out of the Champions League. I do not think they have what it takes to beat Galatasaray. Yeah? And for those who are watching, Newcastle is out. So it's just left now for Manchester City, who are through, by the way, unbeaten, and Arsenal, who are essentially going to cruise because they only need just one win out of the 2 remaining matches. Talk about being leaders in the Premier League, also leaders in the Champions League. I mean, Arsenal is an example to how football should be played. Anyway, we leave it at that particular point. Let's cross over then to the Standard this morning as well. This is it. Workers' tax jubilation. High Court said the 2.75% being deducted on a housing levy is unconstitutional, a move that brought relief to many employees, but respite was short-lived after the judges suspended the decision. We're going to talk about that this morning as well. The 18 billion, essentially, you're going to read on this ruling that was made yesterday, but what is essentially the big news is after that judges suspending that decision and essentially giving the government up to 10th of January 2024 for them to appeal that decision. That essentially means that despite the ruling yesterday, that housing levy will be collected all the way up to January, So they'll take something out of your paycheck again at the end of this month. And let me just read for you this quote so that you know exactly what you expect. This is according to Justice David Majanja, that in the absence of a rational explanation, we can only conclude that the respondent went for the easy part of taxing employees and a formal employment. Let's see, Levy there. We're going to talk about it. There's a story here that I'm going to read on page 3 on the intrigues behind Kenya Trade Board's arrest over oil deal. It's the same story that has been covered on the Daily Nation this morning. And there's on pages 2, you're going to read about how Raila Kalonzo now have taken on RUTO over sale of state assets. That story has been covered on page 2. And on pages 18, costly power tariffs now are leaving Kenya Power in the red. And on page 6, there's a story here, free everyone to pay for new health scheme. That's according to Health CS, Nakumincha. That story covered on page 6. All right, on pages 8, state sets up emergency flood center. Read that particular story on page 8. Now, Manchester United again has been covered on the back page of the Standard this morning. Manchester United hoping to have a last laugh in Turkey. Yeah, you think so? Let's see how it goes, yeah? Actually, the game to watch tonight is Manchester United. Starts at 8:45 p.m. Local time. That is Galatasaray vs Manchester United. It's a game to watch. Yeah, the only one actually, because the likes of Arsenal and Man City are already through, so there's nothing to watch there. All right. By the way, majority of these stories have been covered on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. Once you're there, like a subscription also on our social media platforms and Lookuptv across all of them will be pretty much appreciated this morning as well. We take a tiny breather. Once we come back, I'll take you straight to your newspapers this morning. Actually, not our newspapers, to our newsroom this morning, so we can get a look at some of the biggest stories that we've covered. Into to it, then the High Court has declared the housing levy contained in the Finance Act 2023 unconstitutional and null and void. Kenyans will, however, continue paying the controversial housing levy, as the same court has issued conservatory orders as sought by the government to stay the ruling until January 10th next year. The government, through its lawyers, has already signalled the intention to appeal the ruling. Justice David Majanja, Lawrence Mugambi, and Lady Justice Christine Meoli did not suspend the entire Finance Act 2023 and found several sections of the Act constitutional. Henry Tende opens a bulletin this morning.
Find that the introduction of the housing levy amendment to Section 84 lacks a comprehensive legal framework in violation of Article 10, 201, 2010 of the Constitution. That levy against persons in formal employment to the exclusion of other non-formal income earners without justification is discriminatory and irrational and arbitrary and in violation of Section Articles 27, 201, B1 of the Constitution. And that an order is granted prohibiting the respondents from collecting, charging or otherwise the charge known as the Affordable Housing Act on the basis of the Section 84.
This ruling by a three-judge bench comprising of Judge David Majanja, Lawrence Mugambi and Lady Justice Christine Meoli was a big blow to the government, albeit momentarily, and a relief for a majority of Kenyans vehemently opposed to the housing levy. What followed the judgment was a back-and-forth arguments from petitioners and defense lawyers representing the government. The government team of lawyers seeking 45 days conservatory orders to stay the housing levy.
Cessation of collection of the levy. Is it from today or is it from the time the act was enacted? Tomorrow there will be an avalanche of Kenyans going to KRA to say, give back my money. The following day you are not given the money because there is a procedure that has to be followed. They will be in court with the contempt applications. So this is real danger that is facing everyone in the government who must comply with this particular order.
Application for refund, KRA has 30 days to make a decision. So if you're given 45 days, that means that you'll have sufficient time to not only respond to the application, but also to ensure we have moved the court sufficiently to deal with that.
At around 3 p.m. when the court resumed from a short recess it had taken to evaluate defense lawyers' request, it was time for the government to have its moment. The three judges granted the conservatory order request, staying the housing levy until the appeal option is pursued.
An order of stay and is hereby issued, staying the effect of this judgment issued today, 28 November 2023, pending the filing of a formal application for conservatory stay and conservatory orders in the Court of Appeal. And these orders of stay shall remain in force until 10th of January 2024.
This decision sending the defense team into frenzy, led by lawyer George Murugara. Already they have signaled their decision to appeal the ruling.
Or we have gotten on almost about the 45 days we were asking for, up to and about the 10th of January 2024. This in essence means from now henceforth we have time to consider our position. Number one, by tomorrow we should be filing a notice of appeal and an application for stay of execution or a conservatory order to the Court of Appeal. And for this I'm grateful to this court for granting us that time. Number two, we will also be filing the substantive appeal in the Court of Appeal, and I hope and pray that once we go to the Court of Appeal, the orders we have just gotten here will be extended until the appeal is heard and determined.
The judgment was, however, not well received by petitioners led by Law Society of Kenya President Eric Theuri.
We have, however, found the reasoning by the court to grant a stay of its decision until 10th of January 2024 a little bit strange. It is strange in the sense that it appears intended to allow the government to collect the housing levy. It appears intended to allow the government to have time to finalize the processes that are ongoing in Parliament with a view to regularize the housing, affordable housing fund.
It was a temporary reprieve for Kenyans, but now it is evidently clear they will continue paying for the housing levy as the courts have given the government until 10th of January to appeal the case. Henry Tende, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Azimio leader Raila Amolo Odinga has condemned the government over the move to privatize corporations, highlighting Kenya Pipeline Corporation as one of those. And he questioned, as Gail alluded in our reports, Raila said the move to sell strategic investments is ill-advised.
Addressing supporters during a homecoming ceremony for Kisii Governor Simba Arati at Nyamache Stadium in Bobasi constituency, the opposition leader Raila Odinga singled out Kenya Pipeline Corporation as one of the critical state corporations that the Kenya Kwanza regime intends to sell. According to Raila, if the Kenya Pipeline Corporation was sold out, the prices of petroleum products will shoot up to unprecedented levels, subsequently hurting Kenyans even more.
Sasa wametangaza wanataka kuuza mashirika ya serikali. Moja yao ni ile shirika ya kusafirisha mafuta, Kenya Pipeline Corporation, nataka kuuza, na National Oil Corporation. Kenya Pipeline Corporation ikienda kwa mkono ya watu binafsi, bei mafuta taenda hata mara 100.
Raila defended the corporation, saying it is a strategic investment that should not be sold to private hands. Raila telling the Kenya Kwanza regime to deliver services to the people, including the lowering of costs of living, and to stop blaming retired President Uhuru Kenyatta for its failure.
Hapo. KPC is a strategic investment that should not be sold under any circumstances. Lakini wao wanataka kuuza sasa. Mimi nitaongea juu ya hiyo hivi karibuni.
Raila alluded to the levying of taxes by the government, saying no amount of increasing taxes will improve the Kenya's economy 1 year down the line.
Lakini kwa sasa leo mimi nataka niambie nyinyi ati mjitayarishe. Tunaona mambo hapa itakuwa vile tulikuwa nataka.
His co-principal and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka lauded the court's judgment on declaring House levy unconstitutional, adding that the Azimio coalition will not relent until VAT had been scaled down from 16% to 8% by the government.
Nchi gani inaweza wakati wa shida kama sasa kupandisha ushuru? Wengine wanaleta economic stimulus, sio kufanyia wananchi madharau na dhuluma ya kuongeza ushuru. Tukajaribu kueleza, hawakusikia. Leo hii nashukuru mahakama kuu, the next court in line, our appeal court judges wamekubaliana na msimamo wa azimio la umoja wa Kenya, wakatupilia mbali ushuru wa inaitwa in-housing tax. Hatunatoa, kama hujui imetolewa tukiwa hapa. Simba ulifanya vizuri kutuita, tukasikia uamuzi mahakama kuu, not the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, 3 judges. Wakasema hii koti hii ushuru wa nyumba ni unconstitutional. Kwa hivyo hapo wameanguka flat.
Aludagel for Lookuptv.
There's a court here on the Standard this morning on whether indeed they called for demonstrations yesterday. I gotta tell you what it was. This is what they said: kwa sasa hivi mujitokeze, wakipanga nyokonyoko mnatoka wengi sana, na tukisema hata sasa murudi simtakuja. Wakati nakuja ambayo tutasema wameongea, tutasema hii ni sawa, hii ni sawa, tutaangalia. Kama ODM tunasema tuko tayari. The translation is yours. What does that mean? We talk about it this morning. Let's move on. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has blamed poor infrastructural planning for the devastating El Nino crisis across the country. Speaking at the 17th Annual Kenya Institute of Planners Convention in Kwale, the DP said the government has disbursed 7 billion shillings as part of the intervention to aid flood-affected victims. Gachagua further cautioned the Kenyans to be responsible and alleviate unnecessary deaths in the country. Let's take a look.
Being caused by El Nino rains have been imputed to poor planning and substandard urban development. Rigathi has claimed that contractors are responsible for the cluttered drainage systems that lead to leaking joints and bursting of sewerage lines.
This condition takes place when El Nino is causing havoc across the country. Buildings have been marooned and road networks destroyed. Lives and livelihoods have been lost and others are at risk. This adds to the challenges of collapsing buildings across the country. Between the year 2009 and 2019, at least 87 buildings tumbled down, leaving 200 people dead and over 1,000 injured. The country lost over 2.4 billion Kenya shillings in such losses. Last year alone, 13 houses collapsed in Nairobi metropolitan region. While such unfortunate instances have been linked to rogue contractors, substandard materials, limited or no geotechnical studies, greed among other factors, the ingredient of proper planning for a safe, secure, and sustainable built environment cannot be gainsaid.
Rigathi has said the cities will be the most affected due to improper infrastructure, and the county governments have a duty to respond swiftly to these challenges, urging Kenyans to avoid flood hotspot areas.
Out of the 87 deaths that have occurred due to El Nino, 37 of them is by drowning, not floods getting you to your house, by you going to where the floods are, and daring nature. Kenyans are crossing rivers when they can see the waters are menacing.
Additionally, the deputy president also revealed that the national government shall disburse more money to the county governments for mitigating the adverse effects of the El Nino rains.
Again, we have put aside 7 billion Kenya shillings from the Civil Contingency Fund to intervene in terms of supply of food, interventions in health, provision of mosquito nets, and other drugs to deal with contaminated waters. We are also supporting the Kenya Defence Forces with resources to continue providing air support by getting food and taking to areas that are not accessible. We are also giving resources to the Ministry of Roads and Transport to restore roads that have been cut off to enable supplies reach their destinations. We are enabling them to come up with temporary bridges where they have been cut off. We are also helping the Ministry of Water to deal with the dams that are likely to have a spillover that is dangerous. And we want to ask Kenyans near dams to move to safer grounds.
Ruga Ival, Lookuptv.
He says Kenyans are also going to where the floods are. Don't know what the people of Mombasa and Northeastern are going to say about that particular statement. At least 120 people have died due to the El Nino rains in the country, with 89,000 households displaced. Now, the National Disaster Operations Center has revealed, speaking at Nyayo House, where he led the first press briefing by the Committee to the Public Interior PS, Raymond Omolo, said the national government is speeding up efforts to avert more loss of life.
To coordinate interventions and also address the disaster situation in the respective areas. Saving lives and reducing the impact of the heavy rains through early warning and disaster monitoring remains the government's top priority, and having every sector and stakeholder working in sync is the surest way of mitigating and responding to this emergency. As at today, 4 counties have been identified as the worst hits, and this includes Tana River, Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera counties. 9 counties, including Isiolo, Kwale, Homa Bay, Makueni, Tharaka Nithi, Lamu, Taita Taveta, Meru, and Kisumu are also on high alert. From October to date, 120 people have unfortunately died, and their families have been duly informed. 9 bodies were retrieved from Mombasa, while 4 were retrieved from Lake Victoria. A total of 89,000 households have been displaced and are being hosted in a record 112 camps established in the affected counties. Through our search and rescue efforts, over 2,000 people have been assisted and are undergoing medical checkups at the camps that have been set up. The government has similarly distributed food, water, and non-food items to a number of counties, including Busia, Marsabit, Isiolo, Mandera, Garissa, Tana River, Lamu, Kitui, Kwale, and Mombasa. On matters road infrastructure, the Kotulo-Elwak Road has been reopened, and a total of 36 trucks that were stuck for the last 3 weeks have now started moving to and from Wajir and Mandera counties. Maralal Kisima Road in Samburu, as well as Marsabit, Maikoma, Kalacha Road are currently passable.
Let's move on. The government has said that it is committed to increasing domestic funding for emergency plans for HIV and AIDS relief. President William Ruto, while speaking in Nairobi during the 20th anniversary of the President's emergency plan for AIDS relief, said the funding has been a major setback in the fight against the disease.
According to President William Ruto, the government has increased its financial injection into the HIV commodity pipeline by 1 billion shillings over the past 2 years to enable a smooth supply of emergency aid and relief.
The conversation that is going to ensue shortly in Kenya is how we are going to fund our health requirements sustainably. And the biggest thank you we can give to those who have supported us, like PEPFAR, is to figure out, as Kenyans, how we can deal with the challenge of financing, how those who are able can do more to support those who are not able.
He lauded the government's partnership with the United States of America through the U.S. PEPFAR, saying that it has helped save lives since its inception in 2004.
There have been fewer instances where such partnerships have translated into direct, personal, feasible transformation in the lives and well-being of people in terms of ending suffering, reducing the number of deaths, and prolonging the lives of millions of people who might otherwise have faced high risk of agonizing early death. Kenya's partnership with the United States of America through the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, is one of these very rare partnerships.
PEPFAR aid, which committed more than $110 billion to the fight against HIV and AIDS in more than 50 countries globally, has saved over 25 million lives and many more HIV infection prevented in the country.
Today we celebrate 20 years of PEPFAR's impact in Kenya and of course to an extent also globally. Today we celebrate 20 years of hope. The stories that you've seen just now in the gallery walk is just 20 out of the millions of lives that have already been saved by PEPFAR.
Together, Kenya and the United States have altered the course of the HIV/AIDS epidemic in Kenya. The partnership has saved millions of lives, strengthened health systems and economic prosperity, and perhaps most importantly, created hope. With over 1 million Kenyans on daily life-saving HIV treatment, and 94% of them have successfully suppressed the virus, I can confidently say Kenya is on the cusp of epidemic control.
The president noted that with 1.4 million people living with HIV, over 48,000 children as well as 55,000 breastfeeding mothers are on HIV treatment, assuring that the government is committed to ending AIDS in children by 2027.
So the president was actually here yesterday when the courts were ruling on housing levy. Yeah? And this is the statement that the president gave out immediately after he was informed, the courts have stopped the housing levy. This is what he said, that the housing project has created 120,000 jobs in 8 months. He continued to say that he will respect the decision of the courts. But then, that's not it. You know, yesterday when the ruling came out, I said today or yesterday, immediately after that ruling, the Azimio coalition was going to come in and say, mumeona sasa, courts zimekubaliana na sisi, tuliwaambia. And that tuliwaambia came from a man his name is Kalonzo Musyoka, a man who appended his signature in what they are now saying was stupid. We're going to come and talk about Kalonzo Musyoka, talk about Raila Amolo Odinga, talk about what it means then for a court to declare something unconstitutional until the government makes an appeal. That is a special ruling. It's a very good thing that Silas is in the house this morning. It's going to help us understand what circumstance can lead to that sort of ruling. Unconstitutional, fine, but we're going to give somebody some time somewhere to make an appeal. In the meantime, let it continue. That is worth a talking point this morning, right here on The Morning Drift. This is Lookuptv once we come back.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Are you
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Kipindi ni ukulima Ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your number one show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home.
When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served.
Let's go! Let's go!
Beautiful, wonderful, glorious. We are having the show that we share entitled Shepherd Voice.
I'm waiting for you to get me to Kenya. That's what I'm waiting
for you.
God is the source of every blessings that flow into your life.
And I know that God is going to bless you and to do a new thing.
Pray. Pray.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Oh, well, welcome back to the morning drift this morning. My name is Simba, Elijah Charles Kiage. There's a lot that we're going to discuss this morning, but our discussion essentially is going to center around the landmark ruling on some parts of the Finance Act 2023. Now remember, Okium Tata had essentially asked the courts to suspend the entire act in its entirety, citing very many instances of whether a particular act was unconstitutional. We were waiting for that ruling, and we did know it was going to come at this particular time and date. But the events to that particular ruling, I'm telling you, it was heavy. If you did watch, and we were live, by the way, right here at Lookuptv, you will see exactly how the mood around that bench was. And they were essentially in the first section talking about how the act was and if indeed it followed the steps before it becomes an act. You would have thought, they're ruling in favor of the government. Then until that time to make the decisions came in. We're going to tell you exactly how they ruled. And just before we get into that, I want us to look at exactly how the dailies have essentially looked at that particular cover yesterday. And more if you can, then you would show us exactly what we spoke about this morning, all the way from the Daily Nation to the Standard this morning. Well, all of them are looking at it differently. The Daily Nation is talking about the blocking of that particular act. The Standard is talking about a jubilation for workers, and we do know exactly where that jubilation comes from. 2.75% of the shift has to be shelved for now until at least February 2023. So it's still a wait and see. And the housing levy, which we essentially celebrated upon yesterday, upon that first ruling, we'll have to wait up until 10th of January 2023. Well, just before I introduce the gentlemen who are going to join us this morning, let's look at this particular story. Once we come back, we essentially table that conversation.
Find that the introduction of the housing levy amendment to Section 84 lacks a comprehensive legal framework in violation of Article 10, 201, 2010 of the Constitution. That levy against persons in formal employment to the exclusion of other non-formal income earners without justification is discriminatory and irrational and arbitrarily and in violation of Section Articles 27, 201, B1 of the Constitution. And that an order is granted prohibiting the respondents from collecting, charging, or otherwise the charge known as the Affordable Housing Act on the basis of the Section 84.
This ruling by a three-judge bench comprising of Judge David Majanja, Lawrence Mugambi and Lady Justice Christine Meoli was a big blow to the government, albeit momentarily, and a relief for a majority of Kenyans vehemently opposed to the housing levy. What followed the judgment was a back-and-forth argument from petitioners and defense lawyers representing the government. The government team of lawyers seeking 45 days conservatory orders to stay the housing levy.
Cessation of collection of the levy. Is it from today or is it from the time the act was enacted? Tomorrow there will be an avalanche of Kenyans going to KRA to say give back my money. The following day you are not given the money because there is a procedure that has to be followed. They will be in court with the contempt applications. So this is real danger that is facing everyone in the government who must comply with this particular order.
Application for refund, KRA has 30 days to make a decision. So if you're given 45 days, that means that you'll have sufficient time to not only respond to the application, but also to ensure we have moved the court sufficiently to deal with that.
At around 3 p.m. when the court resumed from a short recess it had taken to evaluate defense lawyers' request, it was time for the government to have its moment. The three judges granted the conservatory order request, staying the housing levy until the appeal option is pursued.
An order of stay and is hereby issued, staying the effect of this judgment issued today, 28 November 2023, pending the filing of a formal application for conservatory stay and conservatory orders in the Court of Appeal. And these orders of stay shall remain in force until 10th of January 2024.
This decision sending the defense team into frenzy, led by lawyer George Murugara. Already they have signaled their decision to appeal the ruling.
Or we have gotten almost about the 45 days we were asking for, up to and about the 10th of January 2024. This in essence means from now henceforth we have time to consider our position. Number one, by tomorrow we should be filing a notice of appeal and an application for stay of execution or a conservatory order to the Court of Appeal. And for this, I'm grateful to this court for granting us that time. Number two, we will also be filing the substantive appeal in the Court of Appeal. And I hope and pray that once we go to the Court of Appeal, the orders we have just gotten here will be extended until the appeal is heard and determined.
The judgment was, however, not well received by petitioners led by Law Society of Kenya President Eric Theuri.
We have, however, found the reasoning by the court to grant a stay of its decision until 10th of January 2024 a little bit strange. It is strange in the sense that it appears intended to allow the government to collect the housing levy. It appears intended to allow the government to have time to finalize the processes that are ongoing in Parliament with a view to regularize the housing, affordable housing fund.
It was a temporary reprieve for Kenyans, but now it is evidently clear they will continue paying for the housing levy as the courts have given the government until 10th of January to appeal the case. Henry Tende, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Now, the president spoke yesterday about specifically the housing levy. And these are the numbers that he gave us. We have to sit back and see whether indeed those numbers are confirmable, because we're not essentially told a portal that will give us those numbers. So since it started, according to the president, 120,000 jobs have been created as a result of the housing levy. Good. We put it there. Silas, let's come back to it. Remember, the first application was expunge the entire Finance Act in its entirety. That's according to Kiom Tata. Well, the judges looked at that issue keenly. They said yesterday that it's not that we find every other thing in this Finance Act unconstitutional. Some acts have followed constitutionality to where it is. But then when they looked at those three, especially the privatization of the Mombasa and Lamu Port, the introduction of the housing levy, and the new SHIF health scheme, they call them unconstitutional. On that basis, they were expunged. But then immediately, Silas, every other person was celebrating. The court reconvened again after that particular ruling. And then they said, but specifically on the housing levy, government lawyers have expressed their intent to appeal. So our ruling stays until 10th of January 2024. Silas, and it's a good thing Fanya Mambo is also in the studio this morning, just to show us exactly, because we didn't understand it. Every other person who watched that ruling didn't understand it. What is the thinking behind that ruling, Silas?
Simba, I agree with the High Court on the basis of the procedures that the Finance Act tried to, the RUTO tried to take, throwing aside the constitutional issues that might arise. And Judge Majanja, there you saw him particularly focusing on Article 27(1) of the Constitution of Kenya. And Article 27(1) of that particular piece of law specifically entails equality before the law. Where everybody, regardless of status, regardless of economic, your income, regardless of your intellect, regardless of your literacy, everybody is equal before the law. So the approaches of the altar of justice, that is Kiom Tata and team, they approached this housing levy on the basis of the fact that, look, this levy is only targeting the civil servants, so the income earners, but leaving out the rest, those who are in the informal sector. And now, as per that, it portrays the law as actually being unequal. It's being applied unequally to the citizens of the country. Remember, if the law becomes so oppressive to the lowly in the society, it is better be abolished. Unlike you allow you exclude the people in the informal sector, but then you want to use this particular piece of legislation without provisions or reasons as to why you are giving this exclusion. Remember, Justice Majanja was very particular. Without reason. The government was supposed to give a reason. Why have they left those in the informal sector? And why are they targeting these other people? So, in the lens of Article 27 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010,
yes,
the housing levy did not follow the law. It is actually unconstitutional as the High Court found it to be. And so, that is why the president immediately came up and you saw him speaking about realignment. So the president understood it, that hey, the issue that the court has addressed on this is something that can be navigated through.
Yes.
What we need to do is give reasons why we have excluded those in the informal sector.
Yes.
Or give reasons why we are only targeting those in the formal sector. Or simply adjust it to include both. By adjusting, meaning just like the NHIF, the former health insurance, you saw there was those in the civil service, they were paying around 1,000 and something monthly, but those in the informal sector were being deducted 500 shillings. So you see there is an inclusion. Although the inclusion here was not equal, it was not a levelized ground, but that is what we call equity as opposed to equality. So you raise the short person and you allow the taller person to just stand. We both want to look at the football pitch, but the shorter one cannot be able to see that football pitch. So what do? We bring some chairs and tables to raise this person to a level where we can both watch the football pitch.
Yes.
So that is what the NHIF or previous drafters of the laws were actually taking into consideration when it comes to equality before the law.
That's it. I'll be coming back to you, Silas, on that. There's just a lot of things that you have to explain to us this morning, just to understand what is the faith behind this ruling then by the courts, because. And the courts don't just represent the government, they represent the people of Kenya as well. And there are a lot of questions, and just like you had the president of the Law Society of Kenya, Eric Theory, right there, saying, well, according to him, it's purely just to give the government more time to collect this levy, as opposed to giving them more time to appeal, as the judge said yesterday. John, good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Morning. How are you?
I gotta say hi to you, man. In fact, let me also say hi to Fanya Mambo. How are you doing, sir? Happy to see you. It's been a minute, man. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
John, I'm gonna ask you from this perspective.
Yes.
Let me remind you to a couple of months ago. One Okiya Omtatah looked at the president right in his face and told him, you see, this thing that you're calling the housing levy, it's not the very first time it's come to the face of Kenyans. It did when you were the deputy president in your former government. We told you how you would have done it. You didn't listen, all right? We went to court, it was thrown out. You also looked at him in the face and told him, you see, what we're gonna do is that you go right ahead and introduce it. But we're gonna go to the court, and the courts are gonna listen to us, and we're gonna throw it out. John, you like to think that as the president, when a man who was quite successful in making the housing levy, back then we used to call it the affordable housing, was successful in the courts, you would listen to him. Sort of try find a way to make it 100% constitutional, John. Well, the president has been blamed as a man who doesn't listen. Is this testament to the fact that, well, I don't gotta listen to Okiya Omtatah. I gotta do what I gotta do, man.
Yes. The president, I think it was in Busia.
It was in Busia, yes.
On Kakamega. On
yes. It was in Busia, actually at the backyard of
yes, where Mtata promised the president, this is not the last you're hearing of this issue. We are going to pambana with it. Now, what happened yesterday, I'm happy that I'm sitting between lawyers, and they should be able to sort of interpret sort of the nitty-gritties and the finer details of the ruling.
Yes.
For me, from sort of a political standpoint, of course, this is a setback for the president. In terms of what he desires or what he has articulated or he wants to do, because housing is a key sort of cog in terms of his plan for the country, in terms of creating employment and, of course, at the same time, serving the bigger purpose of providing the housing that is necessary, decent for Kenyans to live in. So in terms of what the import of this particular ruling, of course, we wait and see. You noticed that the court said you can continue collecting the levy. So essentially, we're in this sort of strange situation where there is a ruling, we are celebrating, but at the same time, it seems like everything is proceeding as normal.
Yes.
And then if you look at what has been happened previously, you notice that, of course, I've seen an interesting tweet by the Nairobi senator.
Yes.
Which essentially says this is not the last of it. There's still more to come. So I'm imagining before we go to the Court of Appeal and then we go back to the Supreme Court, assuming it will get to that point, which most likely will, I think from a sort of legal standpoint, it is good in terms of developing our jurisprudence.
Yes.
But in the longer term, I'm not sure this thing will be scrapped. When you look at Article 209 of the Constitution about taxes and levies, it's actually under the ambit of the Kenyan Parliament. In terms of, there's this interesting, again, I hope my co-panelists will help us interpret this.
Yes.
It's true that some of these taxes are applied discriminatorily, if I can put it that way. Because when you think about pay as you earn,
yes,
it is only people who have pay slips that pay that particular tax. So in terms of how that argument about discrimination and not treating people the same, I think it's something that is, of course, going to be sort of heavily litigated in the courts. But in terms of the mandate to collect taxes and determine taxes, of course, falls under Parliament. So they expect an argument to be made about the judiciary overstepping its mandate.
That's it. Yeah. I'll be coming to you on that. And you say that particular point that you've cleared with there, that the judiciary is overstepping on its mandate. Fanyamambo, it's a question that majority of Kenyans asked. So what the president is saying is that if you have a salary in this government, then it's your responsibility to construct for somebody who has no job, a house. Actually, John, that is the entire thinking of this housing levy, and he has said it over and over again, that those people who have jobs in this country are going to help us construct houses for those people who don't. And on that particular basis there, somebody said, it's common sense. There is no way you can force me to construct a house for somebody who's not contributing to that particular scheme. Fanyamambo. There is no way. And the judiciary looked at it and said, if it's a tax, for instance, under this new scheme that they're talking about, the sheaf, every other person is contributing, John. Every other person is contributing because it is a tax. Tax cannot exclude anybody in this country. Every other person is paying tax. So why would you exclude a couple of them just because you know very well that these other people don't have the power to contribute? On that basis, Fanyamambo, do you think the president is listening? And do you think the judiciary is overstepping on its mandate?
Very good morning.
Good morning, sir.
To be here. To start with, the judiciary is doing their work.
No, sir.
And they are doing it right.
Yes.
Because they are supposed to be the impartial arbiter who helps us to, they adjudicate between us and a state that doesn't listen to its citizens.
No, sir.
Because I remember very well when they tried to do something that looked like public participation because it wasn't. And trying to say that they have listened to Kenyans and Kenyans want their taxes to be invaded. And in fact, it was even backdated for 2 months and people were deducted retrospectively, and then no law applies retrospectively.
Yeah.
So it
Oh,
was
you do
a
remember,
lot
by the way, it was backdated. Yes.
It was a lot of nonsense, to say the least. In fact, one of the things I feel the judges may have made a mistake. You know, for the first time in the history of the world, not Kenya, a law was applied retrospectively. You know, it's like passing a law today saying that thou shalt not walk in slippers in town. And then you look for those people who walked with slippers in town 2 months ago and you arrest all of them. And the law was passed today. It's a principle of law, and it's a natural law that no law shall be applied retrospectively.
Yes.
So this was the first law in the history of the world, not just Kenya, that was applied retrospectively, and judges are sitting and looking, and nothing was addressed about that. That is a very painful truth for all Kenyans, that you can watch somebody come and say, from today on, nobody shall wear slippers in town. And then you go and look for all people who wore slippers 2 months ago, and you arrest them and you put them in a cell, and you fine them for having worn slippers at a time when the law was not that way. So that's a horrible place to be. Then having said that, the second thing that we come to is the question of what were they trying to raise? A stupid 70 billion. And I call it a stupid 70 billion. Why are you killing Kenyans trying to reach out for 70 billion while you are spending 139 billion every year on travel, expenditure, hotels, accommodation, per diems for government officials? The controller of budget was very clear that this government is spending 139 billion entertaining public officers in hotels, in per diems, in meetings, in what you call these stupid things they call going to see what other people are doing better than yourselves, which is benchmarking and so on and so forth. Stupid thing. What this government should have been looking for is 1 billion. You add to the 139 billion that you are wasting. Now you have 140 billion. Instead of looking for 70, you have 140. So to build double the number of units that they were trying to build, if they are going to build and if they have built. And if those 120,000 people can be seen and touched, and if we can have their names, if they are existing anyway, because we've been told 120,000 people have benefited directly from this scheme. So I can tell you that we have an administration that is completely and totally insensitive and unaware of what they are doing.
Yes.
Because if they were aware of what they were doing, these 139 billion, and let me tell you, I invite you to go to Naivasha. You know, there's a string of hotels on Moi South Lake. Just go even today. You don't need anything else. Fuel too. From that end to the other end, all parastatals are there. They're the ones who pay those hotels for 17,000, 18,000, 20,000 a night. And by the way, the people who are being paid they are going for a conference, a training, team building, it's parastatals. Very many of them. You will see GKs there, very many of them. That place is full. It's booked by there until December. And guess what? The person who is being paid for 17,000 shillings for hotel per night lives in a house in Kagemi for 14,000 shillings for a month. That is how public money is being wasted. You should see the 5-star meals they are eating. They are tau. Mtu anakula karibu yake kidole atapiki apate space ya kuweka ingine ya kule. Taxpayers money tau. Those are the people who are now killing Kenyans here with taxation, trying to collect more money to build houses.
Yes.
Our money is being wasted. Yesterday.
Yes. Just before. Yes, Fanyamambo. I'll be coming to you on that as well. Just hold on your thought right there, because that's what I want to come to next. Just Silas, if indeed we're going to listen to what Fanyamambo is saying, that you as a president, you had a marking scheme. It's not like the RUTO administration didn't have a marking scheme. They had a marking scheme on why the court said no to the first drive of housing levy, which President Uhuru Kenyatta was trying to introduce. They had a marking scheme. They had the notes to look into and know exactly how to correct it. They did not. RUTO was told to his face, look here, it is going to be unconstitutional. He did not go back to that marking scheme. Do they come out as men who are acting as if they know that they run their affairs by themselves, as opposed to borrowing a leaf from what was not working in their administration?
Simba, I've picked some very two important points. One from colleague counsel. Good morning, Wakili. And from my very good friend here. You see, when a government that is actually supposed to be wise enough to look for sources of money to put into the projects that they have, as opposed to overtaxing Kenyans to finance their projects, is now becoming quite insensitive. You know, it takes me back to the reading of law, where we were talking about the agreement between King John of England and his barons, where King John of England at the time around 1215, the year 1215 AD, King John was actually overtaxing people and throwing people into prison, coming up with insensitive laws, coming up with illegal arrests, arbitrary arrests over flimsy things, very petty things like the one Wakili is talking about here, that William RUTO today, the president, through parliament, is trying to take us back to the 1945 sitting of the League of Nations, where they came up to try Hitler and his offenders together, and they just formulated the law then, and they wanted to use, rather they used that law retrospectively from the beginning of the war. So we make the law today, and we want to judge you by that law, and that is where scholars came up with the principle that Wakili is talking about here today, that there is no crime without law. There is no punishment without the law. I mean, other things can be used retrospectively. Policies arising out of an existing law. We can decide to retrospectively use the policy. For instance, we have this authority, the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, for instance. It was mandated under the Act which came up in 2011. But then its operations predated to the time when the authority was incorporated. So the thing we are finding with the president is my way or my way. I need no advice. To an extent that we are seeing blows within government. It's not a lie, they're not hiding it. David Ndi has caught who? They're fighting. Murkomen huku, the other Cherargei, the other side, until a friend of mine was now saying, oh, you said it is G to G, government to government. That's the best of its kind. Government to government. So the friend of mine was now asking, so did you say it is G to G? So you see, Simba, the president is becoming insensitive. And the judiciary is actually not overstepping its mandate. The question that Wanyungu posed to us to help interpret. Actually, it is the mandate of the judiciary to interpret the law.
Pretty much on that basis, isn't it? Silas, if you can allow me, let me then cross over to John. John, I mean, you know, in all honesty, and that's what Silas is asking. In all honesty, it's not the very first time, John, that the court is making itself clear on this particular issue for the housing levy in this country. They have before. In fact, if government lawyers really wanted to know how to operationalize it, they would have just gone and borrowed the notes of that particular hearing that happened during Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure and say, what did the courts point out? It's the same notes. Okiya Omtatah told him, I'm not even going to revise it. I'm just going to make the same application that I made. And the courts are still going to make themselves clear on it. They found it illegal, they found it unconstitutional, and they're going to find it unconstitutional the second time round. John, really, if that is going to be your biggest agenda as a president, you would like to think you would walk it like you're walking a dog on a leash. Make sure the steps are calculated, every other thing is clear. Now, all of a sudden, let me point you out to what happened in the courts yesterday. We were watching those proceedings, John. And I was sitting saying, well, let me see exactly how it goes. I started celebrating when they met the hearing. I said, wow, unconstitutional. And I immediately said, so what happens to the monies that we paid, to the contract that have been signed under the housing, the affordable housing agenda? The judges reconvened a couple of minutes later when the lawyers realized this is the worst exposure we're going to give this government. Because now, it could have been illegal for me to go to court tomorrow and say, I want my money back, the ones that have been collected over the past couple of months.
Yes.
Came back and said, okay now, we stay it up to 10th. I mean, if you listen to Theory is saying there's a question mark there on the conduct of the court on that particular ruling. It's good. The case is done and dusted. We can talk about it in whatever we want to talk about it this morning. Is it judiciary overstepping on that particular one, or is it just on the conduct of the judiciary? Why would you make a ruling and then say, because somebody wants to appeal it, we are going to stay it, John? Start with the president and then go to the judiciary.
Interesting. The president, of course, governance is not an issue.
Yes.
It's not easy. It's never been easy. And I think he's now understanding, given what has happened, not just with the housing levy, but everything else that is happening. You've seen the sheep thing being suspended. There's also the issue of Lamu and Mombasa ports.
Yeah.
So it's never easy. It was never going to be easy. In terms of the bit, that's why I said, for me, I'm looking forward to how the case is going to be prosecuted in terms of building that jurisprudence. I want to see what will be developed, because there is Article 209 about tax collection and tax imposition of tax.
Yes.
It's actually, the Constitution is very clear in that line, and I would expect, I expect that we'll be hearing a lot of Article 209 going forward.
But John, it doesn't stop anybody from going to court as well in this
Of course, it doesn't stop anybody.
Yes.
I'm just saying that in terms of the sort of the nitty-gritties of how this thing is supposed to work, or what is supposed to be the role of the judiciary. Of course, we appreciate the role of the judiciary in terms of interpreting the law, because that is what they do, and that is their direct mandate. But there will be that argument that government is simply, or parliament is simply doing its job, and the judiciary is basically saying to you that this is how you're supposed to do your job. That is one part. But when you come back to the to that particular conduct, where you're questioning how is it possible that after a ruling, then the same court or lawyers are making the argument that allow us to continue collecting the money, is because basically we are in a mess. We are in a mess, but that thing messes everything up.
Who's in a mess? In this particular...
Everybody. Of course, we as Kenyans continue paying the tax, isn't it?
Yes.
The tax is still being collected.
Yes.
We've been told until January the 10th. We know how these things work. We will get to the January the 10th, and then it will be extended to the end of April, and then we will keep kicking the can down the road.
Yes.
All this while we are collecting money. And then we're going to end up with a new financial year. And then in that intervening period, they will have regularized, like what the president was saying, we will regularize and go back to those notes Omtata is talking about, so that by the time we get to July 2024, everything is in order and government will continue collecting the taxes. I'm being cynical.
John, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving you, though. There's a question you're not answering this morning. I mean, if it's your biggest agenda, your biggest promise as a government. In fact, John, let me remind you that Dr. President William Ruto, PhD, cancelled a lot of schemes that were giving youth employment in this country. And he said, for me, the biggest source of employment for my government is going to be on this affordable housing agenda that I'm pushing for. I mean, he didn't listen. Okium Tata was right there, John. He didn't listen.
Exactly.
That was a ruling made in the previous government. He didn't listen.
And that's a valid point you're making. And that is why I'm insisting that the government will push these things through, because it's a key cog of the Kenya Kwanza administration plan. Look, when you want...
John, who does it expose? Is it the president?
Of course, all of us, but particularly the president and the government. And that is why I'm insisting and saying that the president will do everything and anything in his power to make sure that this thing stays. The reason I'm saying that is this. From an economic standpoint, We know that the best way to build an economy or to create the number of jobs that this economy requires is through two sectors, the manufacturing industry and construction. And you notice that both of those two key subsectors are part of the Kenya Kwanza administration plan in terms of creating jobs for youths.
Yes.
The housing sector or the building of houses was the most sort of immediate and direct in terms of being able to kickstart things and get moving. And that is why I'm insisting, given that it is a key cog of the Kenya Kwanza administration, the president will do everything and anything to make sure it succeeds. And that is why we will keep seeing these sort of shenanigans, if I can call them that, in the courts, that once we get to January the 10th, they will push it down to April. And before you know it, the financial year has ended. But in that intervening period, what the government will be busy doing is to regularize so that by the time we get, remember, at the moment, the process to create or to do the 24-25 budget has already started. So the idea is by the time they're doing the budget statement to Parliament, they will have sorted out most of these issues. And then we're going to, that is the way I say it. Because the president is not going to let this thing go.
Yes, Fanya Mambo, here's what was interesting yesterday as well, that the president was actually speaking yesterday when this particular ruling happened. So let's look at his response, and I'm going to read it verbatim, and we have it quoted on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. He said that since the housing affordable agenda started, it has created 120,000 jobs. However, I will respect the ruling of the courts. Fanya Mambo, I mean, is that the best response that you get from a president who's been told your biggest drive as a president is getting cancelled or has been technically cancelled?
You see, I sometimes refused to worry about how he responds to some of these things. Because even if I wanted to worry about how he responds to some of these things, he'll be on the next flight to another country. And then the pilot will be told, anza ku reverse, enda kuchukua jacket.
I don't know if I'm going to say that.
I'm going to another country. The president of Malawi, you know, I like responding to what is important for Kenyans. The president of Malawi has started by cancelling all his international trips. In fact, he told ministers when he was doing his state of address, nation address, he's told all his ministers who were abroad and any government official who was abroad to cut their trip short and immediately come back to Malawi. Because you start austerity from home. What we are being told is about 120,000 people who are being involved in housing and construction.
Yes.
Watu wa mjengo kwani walipo pesa ngapi per day? If you are to take that 120,000 and probably multiply by 500 shillings, you'll be surprised. It's probably 6 million shillings a day. How much is being spent on one presidential flight in a day? What we are being blinded from facing the truth. The truth is that a lot of money is being wasted by this administration.
Yes.
And we are always being directed. And that's why sometimes you ask me questions and you wonder whether I'm responding to your question. It's because Kenyans have been conditioned to think in a particular way, and I have refused to think like that. Take 120,000 people, watu wa mjengo, pay them 500 shillings per day, na hii rate ilikuwa ya kazi mtaani ama hizo nani analipa Sakaja. For the people who are cleaning our mitaros, wanatoa uchafu hapa wanaweka ndio kukinyesha irudi, ndio kesho warudi watoe. And then it's never moved from there.
By the way, you've observed that.
That is 6 million shillings a day. How much is fuel for the presidential jet for one trip? So if there are 120,000 people working, and if they are earning roughly 6 million a day, the government is wasting twice or thrice that on one trip. You saw when we were planting trees, a minister leaving Nairobi to go and plant a tree in Mombasa, one tree worth 50 shillings or 100 shillings on a flight, and then coming back, and then collectively 2 ministers have spent 3 million planting 4 trees. This is the kind of nonsense that needs to stop in this country, because these are the people who, and then you are told things that are not making sense. Today, you wanted to spend 70 billion building houses. Who told you we need them? Let's start here. What Kenya needs is classrooms. Go to any school, any government school, watoto wako 100 kwa class. The government has set the rate of 788,000 shillings as the cost of building one classroom. So with 70 billion that we wanted to collect from this housing maneno shenanigans, that 70 billion, if you were to divide, I think we would have not less than 840,000 classrooms built in this country. Mm-hmm. And if you multiply that by 50 students per class, yes, at least 4 million children, yes, would have their lives affected positively. Go to any national school today. My son is in a national school. It's a mess. Some of those kids are sleeping in libraries. And you're here telling nani hana kwao, you're here telling people unawajengea nyumba. What we first need is to fix the basics. And one of the basics that we need is classrooms. Schools need toilets. They need dormitories. We need that. Yes. And if that was being directed to that, it would have a bigger and better impact on this country than that. And now we are here discussing housing. We are forgetting something more critical that is happening. Watoto mtu anapewa marks mpaka ukifanya basic mathematics, what you got in the 5 subjects you add, the total is different. What is wrong with, in fact, NET should be disbanded. I'm glad some children have gone to court. Can you imagine a point where children are getting to a place they're saying, this government is so incompetent that even primary school children are suing this government? Have you ever heard anywhere in the world where primary school children are suing their government for incompetence? Hawawezi hesabu marks. Somebody is being paid and they cannot total 5 subjects. They cannot give you the correct total. Unakuta shule watoto wamepata equal marks. It is so painful that we are playing with the lives of our children and discussing big projects like infrastructure. Stop construction of houses if you cannot mark KCPE. Mtoto anasoma 8 years and then an adult cannot add their totals properly. Alafu unakuta watoto wamefuatana waine wameandikiwa 384, 384, 384 and they got different marks in all the different subjects, but it's totaling to 384. And they are put there and iko na muhuri mpaka ya neck. Shamelessly na inapeanwa na huyo mtoto, that's their future. I am glad that a child has moved to court. Yes. And I pray that the court will stop Form 1 selection. Yes. And I pray that we bring back Matiang'i if we have to. Or the late Nani, I wish we could resurrect him and start streamlining our education system. Because when you are playing with the lives of your own children and then you're telling them of big infrastructure projects, wataenda kuishi huko vipi? And now they can't go to high school. Okay, 1.4 million of them have finished primary. How many high school opportunities are available? Wale wanamaliza ni 900,000. There's a gap of 500,000 classes that we need to fill before we start building. And that's why I came from telling you, I don't want to think the way they are telling us. I have to come up and introduce a new way of thinking. What does this nation need? Sasa hiyo sasa wale wamemaliza form 4 walikuwa wamefanyiwa hesabu, and I thank God hiyo hesabu ilianguka. Very simple maths. 900,000 children finished form 4. Correct. Wakaenda step 2. I wish Professor George Saitoti was alive. You know, he was a mathematician. Yes. Step 2. 900,000 students times 1,000 shillings for ID, because they are all 18, equals 900 million, close to 1 billion. I thank God Kenyans have said wrong. And we are not going to charge our children 1,000 shillings for an ID because they've just finished for. Akona pesa gani isipokuwa huyu mzazi mwenye analipa housing levy, and our funny courts that are also telling them that they will continue paying until January again. It's Kenyans, and I thank God I live in my ward. I live with Kenyans and we have conversations every day and people are not happy. So what we want to hear is a different conversation from what politicians want us to talk about.
Pretty much. Yes. Good. Gentlemen, I want us to move on from this particular issue here, but then there's also another one here that is essentially also tied to the rulings that the courts made yesterday, Chief, which was also another big project for President Dr. William RUTO. I mean, Silence, I'm sorry, I gotta ask you the same question as well. That if it's your biggest project, you like to think that the people that you put in those dockets to guide you on how to implement it, the government lawyers that we do have here, the government advocates that we do have here, Silas, they have to come in and help you walk the project so that you don't suffer this embarrassment or late delivery of your promises to Kenyans. Now, President Dr. William Ruto, and I beg you have a look at the Standard, John. Just on the top right, Nakumincha is speaking, up there on the top left, saying free.
Yes,
everybody's got to pay. You can say it, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, the president comes in and tells Kenyans, guys, as from next year, all of you are going to access free medical care in this country. And, you know, we celebrate because in one way or another, that was his promise, Silas. And then we are told there's a new scheme that has been well thought over called SHIV. The courts look at it and say, nah, it's unconstitutional. It's got to stop as well. Silas, at one point, you got to ask the same question that Fanyamambo is asking. And he's asked it over and over and over again. That the people that the president has put in these positions to help him, to advise him on how to run this government. At one point, they got to go home. At one point, you got to come in and say, every other person who made this particular project fail, no, tomorrow you're going home. Every other person who made sure kids are getting the wrong marks in KCP for the very first time, by the way, in this country, you got to go home, Silas. 2 minutes. We'll take a break, come back and continue.
Simba, you know, politics is politics. Be your opponent address a congregation today, or rather a crowd today.
Yes.
In the next 10 minutes, I leave you the same crowd.
Yes.
You come to address them. You will see them clapping for the issues I was raising and the promises I made. The 2 minutes I leave you with them, they will also clap for you for the promises you make for them. That is how politics works. Mm-hmm. So the person to really listen to in these health insurance issues is actually the health CS, not the president. Because my president, I've told you over and over again, I know him.
Silas, why
He'll
though?
speak to you this morning.
Why though? Why shouldn't we listen to the president? The president said, as from next year, I'm going to get treated for free. Why will the CS come in and tell me, no, you got to pay for it?
Let me tell you, you're asking, why should I not listen to the president?
That's it.
Because the president's a perennial liar. He's actually a proven liar, confirmed liar. Every day lie, I've told you this over and over again. The presidents will lie to you at your tea table.
Maza, Silas. So, yes, I want you to hold your thought. Please, let's take a tiny breather. I'm getting told that we got to take this breather. Once we come back, pick your thoughts on that. And John, please indulge us this morning. You've only said that the leadership is tough and it's time and it's to go on with, it needs to be given time to implement his projects and his ideas. But when this kind of things that Fanyamambo is even talking about here this morning, where NEC can deliver proper examination. And when the guys at the housing ministry are misleading the president to continue implementing an unconstitutional project, at what point do we say, maybe now you should stand up and say, guys, there are top jobs at the Ministry of Education and also at the health docket. Please come in, advise me properly. Once we come back right here on the Morning Drift, once we come back as well, the Azimio coalition is speaking. Is it going back to the streets? We'll be reading it once we come back.
Nestled in the quiet and serene neighborhood of Makutano, just 2.8 kilometers from the tarmac road lies Alpha Meadows. This is a controlled gated community where you can build your city, home, or purchase for investment purposes. If you are looking for a place to call home, full of peace and quiet with magnificent views, then Alpha Meadows is that place. To book a plot, call 0723 979797 or visit us on 4th Avenue Towers along 4th Ngong Avenue off Bishop Road. Alpha Meadows is a product of Fusion Estates. Fusion Estates, your land ownership partner. Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookup TV, your official SME media partner.
So the story we're telling today is a story of passion in practice that grows into business.
We have partnered with the Youth Fund, talk to as many youth as possible and work with them, hold their hand.
It is an expose of captains who have decided to take on challenges in different sectors and industries within the country.
My mentors had also not started as CEOs. They grew up and they showed me how they grew in the organizations. So that's what motivated me to actually do international business. And it was a good experience.
As an individual, support in bridging the care gap, part of me also to offer a solution. I want to leave this world a better place than I found it.
This is the Captain's Arena. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. All right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. This is Lookup TV. We're here with Fanya Mambo, John, and Silas, really looking at the landmark rulings that were made yesterday by the High Court. And just before we went to our first break right here on our big conversation, Silas, you were clearing your point on what is really going on in these particular ministries, where the president is promising Kenyans of things that are going to happen, but then it turns around that the people in this particular docket are the ones who are not making it happen. Like I went on break with you, I said, if indeed the guys at the health ministry knew very well how big a project this was going to be, I mean, we shouldn't have waited for the courts to make their ruling on it. It should have been well guided. It's a big project by the president. It was a big campaign project by the president. So walk the journey with him. Make sure his promises are getting delivered, not just becoming unconstitutional. And I asked you, is it time now probably that the president looks at this ministry and says, maybe I've got incompetent people in it and they gotta go home?
You know, Simba, I remember my trial advocacy lecturer once reminded us that for you to be effective in any agenda you want to undertake, you must have your 5 wives and 1 husband. That means you must ask yourself, what do I want to do? When do I want to do it? Why do I want to do it? How? So you see, the president has the what, and he has the what's in every aspect, but he lacks the why. Fanyamambo has told us.
He also lacks the who.
Yes, yes, Fanyamambo. Yes, Fanyamambo. He lacks the who. You see, he removes the young men from the projects that were actually, if you consider those projects that were being done, the Kazi Mutaani, with the affordable housing that is being brought to us, the cubicles being done, one mzee asked, tukiingia kwa hii maswala ya housing levy, nani ana kwao? That's the question he asked for the period he was speaking about the housing levy. The only question, single question, nani hana kwao? You see, the priorities of this government are misplaced. They were supposed to look for squatters, settle them, but not coming to construct high-end whatever apartments they are constructing to people who are already living in apartments. They are renting, or some have even bought. Nobody is crying about issues of housing within Nairobi.
Yes.
The cries of housing are in the squatters. Look at how you give these people their title deeds. Look at how you give them their land. Look at how you construct homes for them, which, by the way, will be cheaper. But you come to an urban area where after your administration is gone, the next administration will say, look, we don't need houses here. We need industries. And those whole constructions will go down in under a few years. They will go down. So what we are trying to say here is that the president has misplaced priorities. The president is unadvisable. Not that he doesn't have advisors. The president has advisors. Fanyamambo is advising him here. John is doing the advice. We are advising the president on what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, and who to use to do it. The calculations have been made here. You've had Fanyamambo talking about the cost of jet fuel, the trips, and the money he is collecting from the poor Kenyans, civil servants, whom he only added 1,000 shillings, but then he's taking 5,000 from them. That instead of taking money from poor Kenyans, cut on your trips, use that money to build the houses that you want to build without taxing Kenyans. Yes. That is an advice, a brilliant advice for that matter. Very brilliant. A very brilliant advice. So the president, it's not that he lacks who to advise. The president is unadvisable. Once he gets his hands on what he wants to do, you must do it. And by the way, I heard my colleague talk about Article 209 and the courts, whatever. Here it is about the question of constitutionality with respect to equality before the law. Not that the court comes in to step their mandate trying to stop the government from doing taxation. Yes. I don't want to go back there. But it's specifically, particularly on equality before the law. That act is, the taxation, the housing levy tax, the levy itself. It discriminated between the poor and the rich, the haves and the have-not, something that Article 27 has done away with. That is the only question here. And that is why I told you it will be very easy for them to realign it. But now, when I find, in my finishing, Simba, yes, the president really needs to, he has marking schemes. This thing had been, decisions had been made in the previous regime by the courts. There are writings everywhere on the walls. He should just gather his people and want to listen to them. And take their advice.
John, same question, really. It's now becoming a bit embarrassing, man. Yeah, if you were the president today, John, and you sit there, and then you have all these people in this very important docket, especially the ministry, these ministries that you have, let's say the health ministry, and then in this housing ministry that you have. And then you tell them, well, this is what I want to implement. You like to think, because you know how important that project is. And the president has had a lot of cabinet secretary meetings on the delivery agenda for the government. You like to think that these guys would support him, walk with him throughout this journey, so that we don't wake up today and we are talking about how NEC exams, KCP exams are the worst we've ever seen, how the health insurance is been taken out by the courts, how the housing levy has been declared unconstitutional. I think at one point, John, you've got to say, maybe I've got the wrong people that I'm working with here. Is that the problem? Because like Silas is saying, the marking schemes are there. They were there, John.
Yes.
Like they were there.
Yes.
The only thing somebody was supposed to do is, how do we not avoid death this time around? But they're in it now, and deeply at that.
I can only imagine how the cabinet meeting for this week will go. Has it happened?
No.
I think there was an emergency meeting on Monday.
Yes.
It usually happens on Tuesdays or Thursdays.
I think it's on Thursday, sorry.
On Thursday.
Yes.
So I would want to be a fly on the wall in tomorrow's cabinet meeting.
Yes.
Tomorrow is Thursday. if the president is going to be around. Is he going to Nini, by the way?
He even is he going to know whether the president will be around.
Is the president going to be around, or is going for that COP28 in Dubai?
I'm not sure. Our flying. The
we have to ask that first, because of course we know that COP28 is starting.
Is the president going to be around?
Is he really going to be around? Should have the neighbors.
Yes. So COP28 starts today, isn't it? 28th in Dubai. 29th, tomorrow. So it's likely that, but I would want to be in that meeting, especially on the back of what has happened. Especially on the back of what has happened this week. Yes, because these are sort of key.
You think I'm going to be around?
I didn't know he's going to ask that question.
Because you see, the other people said he can be on the air, and then it's like, let's go back to the other.
Because there's an interesting observation that has been made that somehow when things go sideways in the country, the president is normally not around on his way out. So he's either at the airport leaving or he's in some European capital. So
coincidentally, though.
Coincidentally, yes.
Like that.
I've seen them make that sort of insinuation.
Coincidentally.
Yes, I was actually being told by the way,
it's been like that throughout.
And if they didn't advise him on the ruling, he would have been out.
Anyway, so anyway, I even lost track of what I was saying. So anyway, the meeting is going to be very, very interesting, especially on the back of all these things we are talking about.
Yes.
That, it basically throws a spanner into the works. That you have a plan. Change was always going to be difficult. Is always difficult because of how we are wired as human beings. And what the president is doing. Remember last week I said that the only thing that I sort of give this government is their openness to experiment and to try different things. But of course we know that that means change, and then of course as human beings that would create all sorts of problems, and that is basically what is happening. So I totally agree with my colleague here, Akiro, that perhaps we should now start asking questions about who is in charge of these plans. Because in terms of the economic theory underpinning, I've just said that one of the ways of creating economic opportunities, if you look at the growth of China over the last 30 years, has largely been driven by two sectors, construction and manufacturing.
Yes.
So manufacturing, we still have to sort out a few things, including infrastructure, cost of electricity, and so on and so forth. But for construction, you can imagine the number of houses, if they are built in the quantum that government is planning, you can imagine in terms of the demand for labor, the demand for furniture, the demand for cement, the demand for iron bars, and so on and so forth. So that is the theory behind, that is why it's a critical part of what government is doing. Because they believe that if we get this thing going, it's going to create a lot of sort of what we call in economics velocity and accelerator. Yes, we'll sort of engender a lot of growth across different sectors by what is called clustering.
Yes.
That is the theory.
Yes.
But now the question is, who is in charge to oversee that particular mandate in order that we see the benefits that are envisioned under that particular plan. And it's the same now with SHIF and everything else. I saw an interesting when Nakumicha made that threat and said that if you do not register for SHIF, I don't know, you're not going to, and people reminded how of Huduma number. You remember we were told the Huduma number, if you don't register, you're going to be deported, and a lot of people are still waiting to be deported.
Yes.
So it's interesting. We'll see what happens. So there is that question of who is in charge, and do they ikimshukisha hivyo inakuja inabeba wasi wa kadhaa inapeleka, alafu inakimbilia president, anakuja anachukua jacket. But anyway, So that is the big question. That is the elephant in the room, and that's why I've said I would really like to be a fly on the wall in the cabinet meeting tomorrow. See how they will have that conversation around what is happening, because the plan is there. It looks solid, but unfortunately, the personnel and the environment that we are having in the country, whether it is going to feasibly happen with the expected sort of results or objectives that the government has.
Pretty much. Fanyamambo, I want you to put a nail on this conversation this morning. I mean, if you had your employees, Fanyamambo, and then you tell them, you see, in this particular government, health, agenda 1, housing, agenda number 2. In the top 5, maybe those are number 1 and 2. So this is what the government is riding upon. And in fact, that is what they were riding upon. The biggest promises in their campaign were those: health, housing. The president last week was there saying, well, every other Kenyan now, from next year, January, is going to get free treatment in this country, banking on this introduction of SHIF. Is definitely giving somebody that job. And those ministries, they have people that are working on taxpayers' money, and the people that the president comes upon, just so that it doesn't run into these blocks that we're talking about here today. If you listen to his response yesterday, it was a bit soft. He said, yes, I'll accept the ruling of the court. But he knows somewhere, somebody has made this mistake, has led us to this one. I mean, how long can we, or can he as the president then keep on looking at these mistakes? He has reshuffled his cabinet already. He can't keep on reshuffling, because it means that you're taking the mistake somewhere else as well. Do you think now, with the rumors that we do expect a couple of guys to walk out of this government this December, that maybe after Thursday then we'll be getting those rumors about those who are stepping out, and especially now from the health ministry and this housing segment in government?
You know, yesterday in the evening I was going home, and I found 2 trucks parked, with their behinds facing each other. These 2 trucks, unfortunately, were garbage trucks. So one had broken down, and one moving garbage from this one, putting it to this one, so that this one can go to the Lora landfill site. How do you interpret that?
You know what, Fanyamambo? I'm getting told your microphone has a problem this morning. Please, Sean, could you come fix it so that we continue with this? And as I'm waiting, then let me preempt the second part of our conversation this morning as we wait to look into that issue, because the Azimio coalition now is speaking. And it's a good thing that John is here. John has always said, and I want to hear his presentation this morning. John has always said, you said this Bombers of Kenya talks. It is a rope that the Kenya Kwanza government gave the opposition side to hang themselves. That report was released. Raila Amolo Odinga has spoken on it partly. President Dr. William RUTO has spoken on it fully. He said he's going to make sure that everything is implemented. So yesterday, Raila Amolo Odinga is in Kisii, is in Anodiam Rikushona Drive. He spoke on it. But then, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to watch one man, Kalonzo Musyoka. He's a man who was in that committee. He's out of that committee. He's appended his signature, but he's speaking about that report. And the way he's talking about it makes you wonder, wait a minute, Kalonzo, were you not on that particular committee that was writing this report? Let's take a look. Once we come back, Fanyamambo would essentially then clear submission. And then after that, Silas and John then start on this second part. Let's take a look.
Addressing supporters during a homecoming ceremony for Kisii Governor Simba Arati at Nyamache Stadium in Bobasi constituency. The opposition leader Raila Odinga singled out Kenya Pipeline Corporation as one of the critical state corporations that the Kenya Kwanza regime intends to sell. According to Raila, if the Kenya Pipeline Corporation was sold out, the prices of petroleum products will shoot up to unprecedented levels, subsequently hurting Kenyans even more.
Sasa wametangaza wanataka kuuza mashirika ya serikali. Moja yao ni ile shirika ya kusafirisha mafuta, Kenya Pipeline Corporation, nataka kuuza, na National Oil Corporation. Kenya Pipeline Corporation ikienda kwa mkono ya watu binafsi, bei mafuta taenda hata mara 100.
Raila defended the corporation, saying it is a strategic investment that should not be sold to private hands. Raila telling the Kenya Kwanza regime to deliver services to the people, including the lowering of costs of living, and to stop blaming retired President Uhuru Kenyatta for its failure.
Hapo. KPC is a strategic investment that should not be sold under any circumstances. Lakini wao wanataka kuuza sasa. Mimi nitaongea juu ya hiyo hivi karibuni.
Raila alluded to the levying of taxes by the government, saying no amount of increasing taxes will improve the Kenya's economy 1 year down the line.
Lakini kwa sasa leo mimi nataka niambie nyinyi ati mjitayarishe. Naona mambo hapa itakuwa vile tulikuwa nataka.
His co-principal and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka lauded the court's judgment on declaring House levy unconstitutional, adding that the Azimio coalition will not relent until VAT had been scaled down from 16% to 8% by the government.
Nchi gani inaweza wakati wa shida kama sasa kupandisha ushuru? Wengine wanaleta economic stimulus, sio kufanyia wananchi madharau na dhuluma ya kuongeza ushuru. Tukajaribu kuwaeleza, hawakusikia. Leo hii nashukuru mahakama kuu, the next court in line, our appeal court judges, wamekubaliana na msimamo wa azimio la Umoja wa Kenya, wakatupilia mbali ushuru wa inaitwa in-housing tax. Hatunatoa, kama hujui imetolewa tukiwa hapa. Simba ulifanya vizuri kutuita, tukasikia uamuzi wa mahakama kuu, not the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, 3 judges. Wakasema hii koti hii ushuru wa nyumba ni unconstitutional. Kwa hivyo hapo wameanguka flat.
Aludagel for Lookuptv.
Guess what? Once we come back, I'll be asking the right questions to Silas and John on those sentiments of one Raila Amolo Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. But Fanya Mambo, just before we went on that tiny story break, you were talking about how yesterday you met trucks, garbage trucks that are essentially facing each other.
Yes, and one was emptying garbage into the other one. I do not want to replace or to relate that to cabinet reshuffle. Now, moving forward, the Kenya Kwanza administration really has failed Kenyans. And Kenyans are very adaptive people. I've had conversations on the streets. Guess what Kenyans are saying? Unasomesha mtoto. Akifika standard 7, unampeleka shule ambayo iko Kisii. Because there is a guarantee something has happened in Kisii that is phenomenal. I think the teachers have changed. They are the best teachers in the country. Kisii must have the best laboratories in the country. Kisii must have the best infrastructure in the country. Kisii must have the best district education officers in the country. Kisii must have the best principals in the country. Kisii must have the best teachers who are marking exams in the country. Kisii is automatically the hub of education in this country. And so Kenyans are very adaptive. They've decided, mtoto akifika class 7 going to class 8, you look for a school in Kisii and take them there because those schools are performing very well. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel and trying to better the school that is somewhere in Kangema or Murang'a or Thika or wherever. Those places are not performing. Your counties are not performing well in education. The leading county in this country that has got the best brains is Kisii County. And all you need to do is to look at the results of last year and the results of this year. Stop wasting your time even trying to paint your classrooms. Just wait, take your children to Kisii, they will perform well. It has been proven, and numbers do not lie, statistics do not lie. It is proven mathematically that last year schools in Kisii did very well. I mean, there's another school, I was trying to remember the name, and I think it is in your village, and you know that school that did very well, exponentially, they did better than Alliance. Why are we wasting time even taking more teachers to Alliance or hiring more teachers? Any person, ukifikisha mtoto form 4 or class 8, just take them to Kisii, you're guaranteed the child will perform well. This is now the new kind of thinking that Kenyans need to have. All these other mathematics and philosophies and theories are not important. Just take your child to Kisii. Results provided by Kenya National Examination Council have proven that those are the best schools and they are doing very well. Over to Maandamano, because you shall get to them. And what has been said by Raila Amolo Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. Why do we want to sell state corporations? What's the rush for? What's the hurry for? Why do we want to sell Kenya Pipeline Company? Are you saying that as a government you have failed in running Kenya Pipeline Company and now you want to sell it? What has KICC done? Ni makosa gani imefanya ili iuzwe? What wrong? KICC woke up in the morning and refused to stand straight and started leaning, you want to sell it? Or KICC woke up in the morning and moved to Moyale and you no longer like it and you want to sell it? Why do you want to sell it? Why do we want to sell state corporations? What is the thinking? What is the logic behind it? Let me ask you, if Kenya Seed Company, for example, was sold to a private investor, and God forbid that private investor happened to be Bill Gates, what would happen? And we know his stand on Africa, and we know their stand on GMO. What would happen if those people who believe so much that Africans should have genetically modified food bought our Kenya Seed Company? What kind of seeds would we plant in this country? Would probably start having 3 necks or heavy hands. I don't know, but we have to think critically. Look at Telkom Kenya. Very critical communication equipment is at Telkom Kenya. In fact, at the heart of a nation's security, NIS, NSIS, Kenya Police, where is their communication linked to? It's not Safaricom, it's not Airtel. It's a Telkom Kenya issue. So basically when you privatize that, what it means is that unasikianga afande akiongea kwa radio call, the private investors will be hearing everything from everywhere. It's a critical security installation that you cannot afford to have at the hands of a private investor.
Yes.
Because then it means everything that your Kenya Army communicates,
yes,
the private investor has a hold on it. Let us think about privatization. It is not a good way to go. It is not the way to go. Kama hii Kenya imeshinda hii administration, please don't sell our assets. Just give it back to Kenya to us. We appoint another president who will not sell our assets. We want those assets to remain as state assets.
Yes.
That's all.
Silas, Sitaboy is already picked on that. want to take you to this direction as well. Kalonzo Musyoka. Like before we started the show, I was telling you tomorrow now after this court's ruling, the Azimio coalition will get a stage. And they did get a stage. And they said, munaona, hata koti zimetu support kwa hii mambo bwana. Tuliwaambia. So I want to pick the sentiments of one Kalonzo Musyoka. Silas, where does he get the guts to come to a political rally of the same people who sent him to go and negotiate in their favor, number one, on this taxation issue, number two, on this cost of living issue. He himself spent 90 days negotiating. He came out, appended the signature on the report. 3 days later, comes in and says, and I'm going to quote him, Silas, niliwaambia hii mambo ya ushuru lazima mshukishe na hakusikiza. Where does he get those guts? Because you were sent to do that and you couldn't do it, isn't it? So where does he get the guts to come and speak about that? Why is he speaking on it, Silas? That's the question.
Simba, when you talk about negotiation skills,
yes,
what we call the alternative dispute resolution.
Mm-hmm.
We had a dispute here in the country, and then they gave us the National Dialogue Committee.
Yes.
Which, by the way, its constitutionality was also questioned.
Mm-hmm.
The skills are different. We have hardlines and compromises. It doesn't mean that you'll get everything you want from the table.
Yes.
For instance.
Yes, Silas. I don't know what's happening with the mics this morning. John,
yes.
Let me jump to you this morning as well.
Okay.
I'm going to put the same question to you. By the way, your presentation is going to be special. And Fanya Mambo and Silas are listening to you. I do not know whether you're still going on with the same theory for this was a stage for the Azimio coalition to be given a rope to hang themselves.
Yes.
And by the way, even as you get ready, on page 4 of the Standard this morning, there's something Raila Amolo Odinga said in Swahili, which preempted the Standard to say it's going to be back to maandamano.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So could you please explain that theory this morning? Because that report has been released. If you're going to rubber stamp your theory, then this is a chance to do it, John.
Yes, this is the opportunity. I feel like I'm being vindicated, although it's still very early to speak. We know that Raila Odinga has committed to make a statement tomorrow, I think, on the NADCO thing. That's a proper statement.
Yes.
And I expect nothing short of him denouncing it. In the sense that, I told you, the starting point should be how we got here. In terms of, you remember the first day, that statement that created, after the bipartisan failure and then now the formalization through the creation of NADCO.
Yes.
Everybody released their agenda, and it was a 5-point agenda from Kenya Kwanza, and I think 4-point agenda from ODM.
Yes.
Sorry, from Azimio side. And looking at that agenda straight away, I said that the real issues are two. There was the issue about the creation of the office of the leader of opposition and the creation of the office of the prime cabinet secretary, and then the embedment of the 3 funds, the national government CDF, and GAF, and I think the ward constituency thing, ward fund.
Yes.
So those were the real issues. The other issues about the audit of the IEBC, that was never going to happen. Yes? And if anything, naturally IEBC conducts those periodic audits internally and then they give a report. So to expect, and there is a reason why it's called Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. The first letter there gives away what should be happening. So the moment we purport to be trying to sort of, or to be seen to be interfering with the process, we have a problem. And that is why I insisted, of all those issues that are on the table, only those 2 issues are critical. And you notice that when this statement came out, the sort of preliminary report came out, was it on Sunday?
Does it? On Sunday.
The key things were actually those particular issues I'm talking about. And if you look at that report, it basically means, if you were to translate it, that the government carried the day. Yes, because the agenda is at the heart of what that report talks about. And therefore, the president was very quick to endorse it. Now, it puts Raila Amolo Odinga in a very, very difficult situation, or on the spot, because all this time he's been pushing a different agenda, which is not on this final report. So how is that going to work in terms of his image? And all those things, for those of us who support him, would have wanted to see real issues around the cost of living, real issues about electoral justice and the IEBC. But what we've simply seen is expand the recruitment panel for IEBC, include 2 more members. Surely, how is that going to help? And that is why it is very, very telling that the first person to sort of issue some clue about how they feel about this entire process was Martha Karua. And then quickly followed by Eugene Wamalwa. Eugene Wamalwa said, I'm not even going to append my signature to that report. Yet, he sat through, how many days did they sit? Was it 190 days?
89 to be exact.
89 days. He sat through all those sessions, collecting per diem and collecting sitting allowances and doing everything that comes with that particular job. And then here we are at the tail end of the process. He says, I'm not going to append my signature because essentially what is in that document is not what I and people from Azimio felt like is what we wanted. And then that, again, of course, the day before yesterday, or was it yesterday, Jeremiah Kioni said, ilikuwa utapeli tu na. Yes? So you take all those issues, those opinions or sentiments by key Azimio lieutenants who are involved in the process, and then lastly, the co-chair, none other than Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, who is the future of opposition politics, seems to also walk back on what they've done. So it basically confirms that it was a big waste of resources. What I've always told you, and the deputy president said this at the very beginning, and we castigated him. We came at him and said, "Oh, you're running your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about." But it is now becoming very, very evident that it was simply a waste of resources, a waste of time.
Yes.
People simply just collected per diems and sitting allowances.
Well, John, you're not essentially out of it, because the Azimio coalition is painting a picture of the what next now. It's as if they've been listening to you, and I'll be telling you how. Silas, the question that I asked you before I cross over to John is, why does Kalonzo Musyoka get this energy to come in and say, tuliwaambia? But we gave you a chance not to even append a signature on that report, to negotiate to death. But seemingly you did not. And now you're coming here to tell us, well, tuliwaambia na hawakusikiza. So are you telling us you failed to do your job? Is that what Kalonzo Musyoka is saying?
Now, what I wanted to educate us on is this. And this is not in support of the Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, but this is the reality that happens on the ground.
Yes.
Simba, in a negotiating table, we have hardlines and compromises. I bring my hardlines, you bring your hardlines. Then we agree, we reach a stage where I pull out my hardlines, you pull out your hardlines, and then we compromise on a certain issues. So could have been that in that table is what Kalonzo was alluding to, that this matter, you brought it. We debated it extensively and warned you against it. But of all of them, it looked a little bit favorable, so we allowed it. Though it was against our wish. That is what the Muzungu call an abundance of caution. We warned you, but you brought it. And also, it could have been that the main reason why Kalonzo allowed that point in, because probably he knew that it would not see the light of the day. So that is why he was saying, no, tuliwaambia. According to me, from where I sit, I would support Kalonzo's sentiment, although I did not hear how aliwaambia, probably it was indeed he warned them about it.
Yes.
Those are techniques, styles of negotiations that have to be there. Now, back to what we are discussing here. I would still also ask the very, very same questions. Why would you privatize our monuments, our state corporations and parastatals that have done you no harm?
They've got an answer.
I would ask this question.
Yeah, they've got an answer, Silas.
Yes.
The majority of them are loss-making, and so it's really taking a lot from the government to run them. You'd rather sell them, let them go.
No, you don't do that, because if they have worked for the years that they have been into existence, that could only mean one thing. The loss maker in here are not the parastatals, but the parties, the persons are running the parastatals at the moment. Remember, we had what we call employment exodus.
Yes.
Where you see some people are being picked at River Kuja in Migori. They are dead because their positions are wanted by certain individuals. You see some people, contractual terminations over and over again being just done overnight. Yes. That we're now ending your contracts, new absorptions.
Yes.
PSC has announced several, openings since this government came into power.
Yes.
And every now and again we see new people being brought in. The other day we saw Infotract. I don't know whether it was Infotract that said there is a particular two groupings or tribes that are leading in the employment. So does it mean that the government came in as incompetent as their employees are, like Machogu, whom they gave us here for education, and you see the mess here that Fanyamamba has spoken about. You removed the competent people who have been running these parastatals, brought in the incompetent, siphoned all the money, the resources of these parastatals, and now you are using your own negativity to convince Kenyans that we are now running at a loss, we need to sell them. No, if it has worked since the time it was created, and we've not read any losses until now, then the problem is not the parastatals.
Yes.
The problem is you. So what do we change? Do we change the problem, or we change, we fix the problem? I mean, we have to fix the problem. As Fanyambu said, that leave us, give us our parastatals, bring them back to us.
Yes.
We appoint new president who is going to run these things. Because there are effects. Some of them are very dire effects. We have Kenya Seed running into the hands of Bill Gates. My friend, the health effects we are going to have as a country, infertility here and there. We're going to run into serious cancer situation in this country. We're going to run into unspoken environmental issues where our soil will no longer be able to produce because we have privatized our assets into wrong hands. Kenya Pipeline, as Raila Amolo Odinga has just alluded to it, the moment you take it to a private investor, fuel will shoot up. The government will now have a leeway to say, no, it is not within our purview. It is now being run by a private investor. That is now his asset. So, if you cannot manage our parastatals, bring them back to us. Vacate the office,
yes.
Bring them back to us.
Yes.
We appoint new people.
Yes.
But we cannot cry right now, Simba, that we want to change the top office of the government when less than a year ago we had the opportunity and we voted with our stomachs. 2027 is coming. That's what I want to say.
Salas, but just before I cross over to Fanyamambo, just pass me the Standard. It's just next to you, because I got to read him the statement. Fanyamambo, if you look at, actually, was it the Standard or the Daily Nation? John has the Daily Nation. John, could you pass me the Daily Nation? Because I think that's where the story comes from. That's it. On page 6, I'm going to read it to you, Fanyamambo, this morning, so that we could all think on exactly what it is. Right, this is Raila Amolo Odinga, and it was quoted verbatim. We started quoting him, but we ran out of time on that story we just ran after the break. So here it is. This is what Raila Amolo Odinga says. Kwa sasa hivi mujitokeze. Wakipanga nyokonyoko, munatoka wengi sana. Na tukisema hata sasa murudi simtakuja. Wakati inakuja ambayo tutasema wameongea. Tunasema hii ni sawa, tutaangalia. Kama ODM, tunasema tuko tayari. You pass it over to John. I say John says, it was a rope for the opposition to hang, Fanyamambo. But the Daily Nation called it. It's like Raila Amolo Odinga is intimating that, hi, guys, we might go back. So when we called you, please turn out in large numbers. That's what that translation is essentially about. Fanyamambo, could you help us understand? And as a negotiation expert, why would Kalonzo Musyoka, who's been given that particular job, come out after he's appended his signature to a report and say, tuliwaambia mwezi ongeza ushuru, hawakusikiza, ni vizuri koti imetu support kwa hii mambo. I mean, we gave you that responsibility to come in and say, please do not introduce this. I'm not going to leave this table until I at least take something to the people who sent me here. We've seen some of them who've taken that hardlining stance. Eugene Wamalwa said, nah, they're going to come back and sign that stupid report. It's useless because it's not touching on what we were sent there to do. Martha Karua has called it again. Said, well, it looks stupid because it's not impacting on the lives of the Kenyans. Kalonzo Musyoka, who represents this side now, appended a signature on it, comes out and starts castigating the government on a matter that it was sent to go and negotiate upon. Fanyamambo, why would he speak like that?
Okay, thank you very much. I think to start with, appending his signature says, this is the report of what has come out of Bomas. It's not the report of what we had come for, but after deliberations and deliberations, This is the true and accurate report of what has come out of here.
Just that, not any other way? Like, I support what this is?
And then from there,
yes,
he says, I do not agree with what has come out of Bomas. As to whether Kenyans should go to maandamano, I hold a different view. Because when you go online, there are people who still believe that this government needs more time.
Yes.
And there are people who keep saying that Raila Amolo Odinga was not an option.
Yes.
If I was advising Raila Amolo Odinga, I would tell him to keep quiet for another 6 months. I would tell him not to even organize maandamano. Let this come from the Kenyans themselves, and especially the Kenyans who voted for Kenya Kwanza.
Yes.
They are crying in Nyamakema, they are crying in River Road and all these other places where they do business. And they are making a lot of noise on social media, people from Mount Kenya. I think the only way sometimes to make someone see things the way you see them is to expose them to the agents. Let them be in the sun, let them be in the rain. After some time, they'll come and tell you it was too hot outside or it was raining and I came back inside. Right now, Raila will appear like he's running his own agenda. I am telling you, Kenya Kwanza does not need anything much.
Yes.
It doesn't even need an opposition. It's fighting itself. All they need to do is pull back and wait and let the government do the things it wants to do for the next 6 months. If there's going to be any maandamano, it will be wananchi led. It will have come from wananchi. Wanamukanga tu wanachukua placards, wanasema wamechoka wenyewe. So I wouldn't even advise Raila Amolo Odinga to call for maandamano. I would tell him to sit back and wait, and then join wananchi maandamano. It will be easier and better. Because at that point in time, the conviction will have been on every hand. Right now they are going to say, oh, Raila ameanza maandamano, anaharibu biashara zetu. Already our businesses are being killed by taxation. Without maandamano, there's a lot of pain in every business. So you don't even need to organize maandamano. Just pull back. Let this government meet so many new taxes, because wakiona menyamaza, they'll bring a lot more taxes. They will bring a lot more extortion to Kenyans. And Kenyans themselves will speak from wherever they are. And Kenyans themselves will take themselves to the streets without being sent by anyone.
Yes.
That would be a good time to join the maandamano. But for now, just sit back and relax. I mean, why are you correcting your enemy when they're making a mistake? When you see him load the gun, wait. When you see him say 1 bullet is not enough, they put 2, wait. When you see him cock the gun, wait. When you see him put it on his head, wait. When you see him about to pull the trigger, wait. After he pulls the trigger, now you come. So don't fight a government that is fighting itself. Leave it alone. Let it continue pushing the Mwananchi to the wall. The reaction will come from the Mwananchi.
Does it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Gentlemen, I want that to rest. But when you're going to respond to this, I'll give you 2 minutes, 1 minute for the final response, and then 1 minute for this as well. The Deputy President is speaking. We put the government on the spot on the way that they reacted to the current El Nino situation in the country. The Deputy President, again, created a controversy when he went back to Mombasa. This time around again, he's in Mombasa, by the way. He spoke, sorry, he was in Kwale. He spoke, and there's something that he said that agitated Kenyans. Let's take a look at a particular story. Once we come back, I'll be giving this gentleman one minute each just to respond on a particular statement that agitated Kenyans yesterday. Let's take a look.
The unfavorable effects being caused by El Nino rains have been imputed to poor planning and substandard urban development. Rigathi has claimed that contractors are responsible for the cluttered drainage systems that lead to leaking joints and bursting of sewerage lines.
This condition takes place when El Nino is causing havoc across the country. Buildings have been marooned and road networks destroyed. Lives and livelihoods have been lost and others are at risk. This adds to the challenges of collapsing buildings across the country. Between the year 2009 and 2019, at least 87 buildings tumbled down, leaving 200 people dead and over 1,000 injured. The country lost over 2.4 billion Kenya shillings in such losses. Last year alone, 13 houses collapsed in Nairobi metropolitan region. While such unfortunate instances have been linked to rogue contractors, substandard materials, limited or no geotechnical studies, greed, among other factors, the ingredient of proper planning for a safe, secure, and sustainable built environment cannot be gainsaid.
Rigathi has said the cities will be the most affected due to improper infrastructure, and the county governments have a duty to respond swiftly to these challenges, urging Kenyans to avoid flood hotspot areas.
Out of the 87 deaths that have occurred due to El Nino, 37 of them is by drowning, not floods getting you to your house, by you going to where the floods are, and daring nature. Kenyans are crossing rivers when they can see the waters are menacing.
Additionally, the deputy president also revealed that the national government shall disburse more money to the county governments for mitigating the adverse effects of the El Nino rains.
Silas, here's the thing, yeah? We have 5 minutes left. I'm going to give you a minute because I owe John 2 minutes. Out of the 87 who speaking yesterday, but the official number, by the way, is more than 129. In fact, let me start with Fanya Mambo. Fanya Mambo, so I stick to the order. Out of the 87, 37 have died by drowning, and it continues to say, walijipeleka hapo.
You see,
yes,
our deputy president has a way of proving that he's insensitive to Kenyans. And that's why he told them that they are shareholders.
We're laughing, we should be laughing.
Some of these families have not even buried their loved ones.
Does it?
Some have not even found their bodies.
Yes.
And some bado wako na matanga nyumbani wamepitch tent. So when you tell them that the man who left your house is a breadwinner, going to look for food for his children, took himself to floods, you know, like he was a baby, he just took himself to floods to swim there. And you've not even buried that person. It's very insensitive. In fact, it's one thing I think he should apologize for.
Yes, yes.
Some of these people are employed by very bad employers who don't care. You need to be at work at 8. And if you're not here, you get a memo. You're probably working on your last warning.
Yes.
Ama ni industrial area kwenye wanaingia kwanza ndio wanachukuliwa, no regards for those who had come yesterday. If that person was trying to cross a river and he dies in the process, he was trying to do so that he can bring food to his family at home. He was not idle and then he went where the water is and he started swimming like a baby. That's not the position.
Yes.
So I think he needs to apologize to these families because they are still mourning their loved ones. And even if you bury someone, you continue mourning them for a very long time. So that statement is insensitive.
Yes.
And it is not in good taste.
Pretty much. John, you have a minute to, you have 2 minutes actually to join in your 2 sentiments that if Raila Amolo Odinga then takes his supporters to the street, it's not essentially a rope to hang on themselves since the report has not gone their way. And number 2, those sentiments there by the Deputy President. 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. I'll start with the second part.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree more with Fanya Mambo.
Yes.
That the Deputy President's sentiments yesterday were tone deaf, very, very insensitive. And I'm wondering, is he suggesting that these 37 people committed suicide? Because the moment you say that they took themselves there, you're essentially saying these people committed suicide. Is that what the Deputy President is saying? So I totally agree with Fanya Mambo. He should retract that statement and apologize. That these were simply Kenyans going on about their lives. We don't know their circumstances. People work for different people. People sort of have different objectives when they go about their lives. So we don't know. So to suggest somehow that these people took themselves to their deaths is very, very, very insensitive and tone deaf. On the second part, we wait for the leader of Azimio to speak tomorrow, Bwana Raila Amolo Odinga. We know he is the doyen, the enigma of Kenyan politics. He keeps you guessing. We know that he seemed to be on his last legs, but somehow it looks like he's gotten a window to come back into the game. We wait for tomorrow. Like I said, most likely we'll denounce the report. But like I said, they went through the process and then they realized that we've cornered ourselves. This is the rope and the stool is about to be taken away from under our feet. And that is now why tomorrow most likely will be this thing at Levy. hatuitaki. There is nothing about cost of living, because you see, one of the issues that came out of to reduce cost of living was to reduce the road development levy by 5 shillings. That's not going to happen. We need billions to rebuild all this infrastructure that has been washed away. So government will make the argument, tungependa sana ku reduce 5 shillings, lakini si mnaona mabarabara zimebebwa na maji, we need to repair those roads. So it's not going to happen.
That's it. Silas, 1 minute, take us out. Kashagwa speaking.
You know, my two co-panelists here have spoken about the insensitivity of the deputy president.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that the deputy president is insensitive. In fact, that man is very sensitive. Very sensitive. The people who are insensitive are the people he represents. We are the ones insensitive. By the way, how did we get him there? We are the ones insensitive. So we should be insulting ourselves to be insulted by our own representative. That's what I want to say.
As Silas is essentially then put an end to that conversation. Guess what? Texas gentlemen, back to the time that agendas this morning online and Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. That event tomorrow for Raila Amolo Odinga, we shall be live, just like we've been across all the major events this year. Probably the last one this time politically then. Online and Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. My name is Simba. Elijah Charles here. Yafanya Mambo Jones. Silas, always a pleasure to have you around, man. Tomorrow is another time for us to do this. Goodbye.